I bet you're all about to think that I'm gonna detail a horrifying episode with all this blood and gore and shit, but that is way far from the truth. So, South Park needs no introduction in this world, but for those who live under a rock, allow me to elaborate. South Park is an animated cartoon that first aired on Comedy Central in 1997 and was created by musical and comic geniuses Matt Stone and Trey Parker. The show centers around four kids: Kyle Broflovsky, Stan Marsh, Kenny McCormick, and Eric Cartman. Each episode involves the four boys getting into some kind of adult situation, whether it be Cartman having a satellite stuffed in his ass, or Kyle falling in love with a sheltered homeschool girl. Matt and Trey's writing seem to be flawless. Well, minus season 20, that was a huge pile of shit. But today, I bring you a lost episode that was meant to air not too long ago. Don't ask me how I got this episode. All you need to know is I have it in my possession. But before I go into detail, I'll need to provide context as to what the plot is based off of. In Season 19, there was a brief couple of scenes in the cult classic Craig X Tweak episode where the town's mayor, Mayor McDaniels, was mourning over the loss of her husband. Scene 1 pictured her looking through pieces of Creek fan art drawn by the Asian girls, where she then noticed a picture of her now late husband sitting on the desk. This scene particularly melted my heart when I first saw it. Mayor McDaniels isn't exactly my favorite character in the series, but that doesn't mean I lack empathy. The second scene took place during the Say Something music video collage where people are mourning over Craig and Tweak's quote-unquote breakup. There's a brief few seconds where Mayor McDaniels was standing by her husband's grave. She was in tears. I'm gonna come clean. These two scenes really made me curious. How did her husband die? Was it cancer? A car accident? Nobody would know. Until now. The episode I had obtained was dated 11/11/2019 and had a disclaimer saying, "The following has been made in honor of the late Mary Kay Bergman's 20th anniversary, and due to the subject matter, has been split into two separate stories. If you are easily sensitive to the topic of death or suicide, please skip this episode." It was nice to see that they were initially going to honor the late Mary Kay Bergman, may her soul rest in peace, but also quite sad the episode was never greenlit. It was probably due to the subject matter of suicide, which was rather odd as Mayor McDaniels had attempted suicide in the 2005 episode Die Hippie Die. Then again, the world and society on its own has changed in the past decade. The episode opened up with no disclaimer aside from what I had detailed above. The intro played out as semi-normal, but the South Park theme was altered as to a more depressing and ballad version. Surprisingly, the intro played as normal with the kids getting on the bus and the townsfolk going about their day. After that, the episode opened with Cartman sitting on the couch eating cheesy poofs. A news blurb popped up on the TV interrupting Cartman's Terrence and Phillip marathon. "This just in, there has been a car accident on the highway. The investigation has identified the victim as 48-year-old Lucas McDaniels, husband of our town mayor," the news guy said. Cartman simply threw a pillow at the TV and screamed,
"God damn it, nobody gives a shit!"
The TV then cut to static before it transitioned to the city hall. Mayor McDaniels' aides were getting ready to punch in for their job. "I wonder how the mayor is taking the recent news," the first aide said. "Probably not too good," the other replied as they entered. When they entered, the entire hall was a mess. Broken vases, crooked portraits, etc. "Oh, shit," the aides said in unison before cutting to a very unstable McDaniels. Tissues were cluttered everywhere, half of them covered in runny makeup. "This can't be happening," she whispered to herself before the aides entered. Mayor?" one of them said. "Oh, good morning," she stuttered. "I didn't think you'd come in this early." The aides then looked at each other before one of them stepped forward to clean some of the crumpled up tissues. "Well, we didn't expect you to be here either, Mayor, after hearing about, well, you know," one of the aides said. "Yeah, well, shit happens," the mayor replied, trying to keep her composure. "I'll be heading to the hospital this afternoon to get any further updates on my—" She was then cut off by a report on the radio station. "Attention, South Park. Lucas McDaniels was recently pronounced dead 5 minutes ago. His wife Mary has yet to comment on the matter. Apparently, the accident was so fatal that the car fell on top of him, killing him in the process. Mayor McDaniels looked stunned, her face turning pale white as tears formed in her already bloodshot eyes. "You should probably take the day off," one of the aides suggested, hinting that they were both very uncomfortable in the situation. "I'll be fine." Dialogue was then cut off to Mayor McDaniels being shoved out of her office by the aides. "Geez," she scoffed before walking out of City Hall. Many of the townsfolk stopped to stare at her state as sad music began to play in the background. The boys eventually took notice of what happened and gave confused looks.
What happened?
Stan whispered.
Something about some guy who died, I guess.
Cartman scoffed, shoving more cheesy poofs in his mouth.
That guy was the mayor's husband, jackass,
Kyle retorted. Kenny told them about what happened and the others were shocked.
I wonder how the mayor's taking it, Kyle said worryingly. I'm sure she's fine, Kyle. You Jews are just overdramatic, Cartman replied.
It then cut to the mayor's house where the lights were out, curtains closed shut, and more tissues scattered about. "This isn't fair. He was all I had left," the mayor said, trying to catch her breath. Just then she got a phone call. "Mayor speaking," she answered, picking up the phone. "Hello, Mayor. We are calling on behalf of setting up your husband's funeral. Is there anything in particular we would like to have set up for you?" The person over the phone said. "Well, since he was married to someone as successful as myself, I think it'd only be fitting to have the funeral be fancy. Plus, Mayor McDaniels then zoned out, giving us one of those flashback segments to some of the moments she had with her husband. Their wedding, first Christmas together, and etc. It then cut back to her getting in touch with reality, continuing the phone call where she discussed the preparations for the funeral. A few days later, when the funeral took place, almost all of South Park was there. Everyone was dressed in their finest formal wear, except for Cartman, that is. He was still wearing his normal everyday attire. The aides were ready for the mayor to arrive, but they got no word from her. One of the aides then tried calling her over the phone, surprisingly getting an answer. "Mayor, the funeral is starting soon and everybody's waiting for you," the aide said. I'm not coming," the mayor responded back. "But it's your husband's funeral. Plus, all of the townsfolk are here to lend their support," another aide replied. I know, I'm just not ready. I'll get back in touch with you guys shortly," McDaniel said before hanging up. The aides then stepped on stage and told the townsfolk that the mayor would be running late and they would be giving out a speech until her arrival. Just before they could start, Mayor McDaniels arrived. She stepped out of her car, cloaked in a black dress and a matching veil to hide her face. The crowd mumbled, either out of worry or wondering why the hell she was so late. Maybe even both. She then got on stage and began to deliver her speech. "My husband was a great man. We met in high school during freshman year and started dating 2 years later. It wasn't until after our wedding that I would be elected as your mayor, and that is nothing but a huge honor," she said before her vision blurred. She was trying to fight the urge to cry, much to the worry of those in the audience. "I can't stand the fact that this must be my reality. We were supposed to go down together," she then ran off, leading to the screen cutting black, with a text saying, "To be continued," in the South Park font. Well, as they said, to be continued.